Hello, everyone. It's Kendra and Jenni here. Take Your Health Back Now. So we are on season 2, part 3. So our last podcast was on, I forgot we're recording. This is only our second one recording video.
Yes.
And we forget. So anyway, our last podcast was on, we called it Knowledge Plus Action Equals Power. And if you watched that one, you might remember that we were really rushing through it. And
yes.
Once we got to the solutions at the end, we had about 5 minutes left. So this podcast is going to be on the solutions. So it's basically knowledge plus action equals power part 2.
So these are the actions that you can take. We're trying to keep them all positive things that you can do in the current climate. We're not going to use any of those hot button words so that maybe we can put this on YouTube.
Right, because the last one, we immediately, how many hours was it before we got pulled off?
Yeah, it wasn't even on. It was as soon as it processed.
Oh, so as soon as it processed,
it never went up.
It immediately got pulled down. So hopefully you guys saw it somewhere else.
Yeah, we did just post it a direct link, so this wasn't as convenient, but it was up there. So,
right. So, go ahead.
You all know what the current environment is, if you have done the thing, not done the thing, if your family's doing it, how we want to keep positive and healthy and safe with all of the health issues going around.
Right. So that's what it's on. So we cannot say any of the words. So hopefully you're getting it. Oh, I know. A good code word is the Maxine rather than the other word. I've heard people use that and that doesn't get taken down. So that's what we're talking about. I'm sure if you've been following us, you know.
But these are always also just good for general health.
Yes. Yeah. Everything that we're talking about is it's really just about building your immune system across the board, right? That's what we focus on all the time, so that you don't get the chronic health conditions, you don't get the autoimmune conditions, you don't have the current condition, it's just building your immune system is basically what this all is. So first, I just wrote down the foundation. So that's what we always teach in everything we do in the clinic and our membership. So the foundations would be basically it's what you eat, it's your diet, it's the environment, it is your lifestyle.
Yeah, and the environment doesn't necessarily mean like high level global environment. That's part of it, but you really have to focus on your own environment, the places you spend the most time. So your house, your work, your car, it just depends on you, your situation, but that's the environment we're talking about. And also your physical environment of your body. So once you focus on that, it has ripple effects out to the greater global environment.
Right. And it all comes down to, we always talk about taking control of what you have control over. So there are so many things in our environment that are causing these conditions that we have no control over. But if you get stuck there, like I was thinking earlier, it's like staying in the eye of the storm, the hurricane. If you're in the eye of the storm, it's calm, but everything else is a big hurricane, crazy. So if you focus on everything and you have no control, then that's a huge stressor and you're just going to be spinning your wheels. But if you focus on what you actually have control over, which you always have a lot of control, that's where you can make an impact. So know what's going on, but then focus on what you have control over. So that's what we're talking about. Yes. So we've talked about the foundations a lot. If we're not going to really touch on that now. You can go back if you're a member, if you're a patient, if you want to look at other podcasts, we've talked about it a lot. So that's number 1. Breathing. Remembering to breathe, deep breathing. We've talked about that before too. Buddha breaths. You're staying alive requires oxygen. 3 minutes without oxygen, you die.
Right. Just being conscious of your breath, even if it's not like all day, like every breath you don't have to think about. But it takes some time each day to do intentional breathing the correct way.
Right. Through your abdomen. We have, again, in our membership, we teach you how to do that. Most adults are breathing up through your chest, and you need to be breathing through your abdomen. Every cell in your body relies on oxygen. So that's really important. Staying hydrated seems like a simple one, but most people are dehydrated. Yeah. So half your ideal body weight in ounces is what we always say.
Yes. And a lot of people really struggle with this at the beginning.
Right.
Because it's a habit that you have to build. And B, yes, when you're first increasing your liquid intake substantially, you're going to have to use the bathroom more.
Right.
But that will level out because first of all, you're flushing a lot more because you're taking in the right amount of water. So you're going to be detoxing a little bit. And your body just has to get used to that. So once it's used to you taking in that much water, then that will not be as bad.
Right. But just remember, we're 70% water.
Yes.
Every part of us. So 70%. If you imagine, you fill your up here.
Yes.
And again, your cells rely on water, your brain, everything relies on water. So you've got to stay hydrated. Water is a big part of that foundational system. So you've got to make sure it is also filtered water. So there's up to 500 different chemicals in our water. So you want to make sure it's a good filter. We always recommend Berkey, just because it leaves the minerals, but does take out up to 500 chemicals, industrial chemicals out of the water. And it's
really I think the best, cost or value.
I think so too.
You've got the counters, everyone can have that. Everyone's got a spot. It's not super expensive. You're only replacing the filter very occasionally.
Yeah.
So it is really a good mid-range. You can do just the filter bottles. It's a lot less expensive, but I feel like people aren't as inclined to drink as much when they're doing those. They're great for travel. And then all home systems are great too, that it's a much bigger investment. So the Berkey countertop ones really are an excellent place to start.
Yeah, plus they're stainless steel. So you don't have as much plastic. You just have the plastic from the filters.
Yeah.
Epic water bottle is the one we recommend for travel that Jenni was mentioning because it's a glass water bottle and it has a really good filter in it. The other thing with the Berkey that I've done the last couple of times, they have travel Berkeys. Mm-hmm. So that's what I actually have in my kitchen. But I've been taking it with me when we go on trips, packing it with me. And then that way, when you're at a hotel or, Airbnb, wherever you're staying, you have that. So if you think about it, if you make coffee or whatever, you've got filtered water excess all the time, and they're not very big.
Yeah, it saves on the packaging because I keep thinking I need to get the travel one because I'll go buy a bunch of the box water. So it's not in plastic, but it's still in cardboard and it's still all kinds of packaging, but I don't want to drink hotel water. So
exactly.
I keep thinking I need to get one of those.
No, it's totally worth it. And again, it's just a habit to get into taking it, but it's really nice to have. Make sure that you're breathing, make sure you're staying hydrated. Connecting with nature is huge. We talk about this all the time if you're following us, but you really have to, it's one thing to be out in nature, but you really have to consciously be connecting to nature. And if you think about nature, everything in nature, first of all, we're one big ecosystem, right? So everything in nature is what we innately are connected to. That's what we recognize. That's what our bodies recognize. And so much of this going on right now is synthetic, which our bodies do not recognize, including the vaccine and the frequency coming off of that. It's very important now to be connected to nature and really be cognizant of connecting to nature. So think about the energy fields. We have an energy field, plants have an energy field. And anytime you come in contact with somebody, like right now, if you could see Jenni and my energy fields, they would probably be melding together because it's kind of like greeting somebody, but your energy fields actually meet. This is a real thing.
I was going to say that. I feel like sometimes people just start imagining this as our I don't know, psychic selves, but we're talking about your actual energy. This is scientific. It can be measured just because you can't see it. You can't see music, but you can hear it. It's a vibration. It's a frequency. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's real. But the same thing is coming off of trees. It's coming off of plants. So when you're out, if you really think about your energy field connecting with the plants and the trees when you're out, you can actually see the energy field if you get really good at it, but it's something you have to practice. But good practice is kind of closing kind of barely closing your eyes and then kind of not exactly looking at something. So like there's a plant over there. If I just kind of close my eyes and look to the side of it, if you really start doing that every day, it's kind of like building up a muscle. You can start to see the energy fields, especially if it's more of a white sky against trees. That's a good place to start.
Yeah, and there's like resources for building that perception online that you can find, and you can do that, but it is something you have to work on. It's just, you can increase your perception of food. You can work on your palate. You can increase your perception of scents. You can increase your auditory. Like everything can be improved. And this is just another sense that we don't really talk about or taught about a lot. So it is something you're kind of starting at zero. You have to work up.
Right. And you can even just mentally mentally think that your energy field is connecting with trees you're walking by or whatever. I also lately have been disconnecting my energy field from people that have had the vaccine just because of the frequency, or that's just something I do for myself, just as a protective measure. Thinking about, and then also with nature, I was going to say, and we talk about this a lot too, but everything in nature is a higher vibration because that is a natural frequency for us. Everything that is man-made or synthetic, GMOs, EMFs, anything. There's so much right now that is man-made and synthetic. Those have a very low frequency.
Or no frequency. Which is just like when you're eating. That's why we recommend
Pop-Tart.
Right. Or even like when we recommend eating fresh local foods, that's part of the reason why. If that banana has been picked 3 months ago and shipped here, it's lost a lot of that energy and nutrient value. So you can see it declining in several ways. So there's lots of ways you can interpret that energy. And when things are natural, they need to still be alive.
Yes. Yeah, it's that life force energy. But just focusing on that, even high vibe thoughts, we have our whole mindset piece of our membership. So focusing on high vibe thoughts, anything that is a higher vibration, love, joy, gratitude, empowerment, those are all very high. Yeah. Fear, which a lot of people are stuck in that now. Fear. What's another low one? Obviously, we don't write there. I don't know.
Like jealousy, anger.
Yeah, all of those are very low.
I had to picture the chart in my mind.
I know, but nature itself is very high. So that's another reason for connecting to nature. Also, I like to go along when I'm out in nature and think about our connection that we have with us. So think about the trees or plants as well. They breathe out oxygen, which is what we breathe in. So it's this ebb and flow always. So there's this ebb and flow of energy. There's an ebb and flow of breath. So what we breathe out, carbon dioxide, is what they breathe in. So you're giving them life. They're giving us life. It's this ebb and flow back and forth. Also, when you're out in nature, you want to be grounding.
Yes.
That's really important to ground every day if you can. It's hard in the winter, because grounding, you need to have your shoes off.
Yeah.
But try to get out as much as possible and actually ground and connect with the earth, which brings us to the Schumann resonance. That's when you ground, you are connecting to the Schumann resonance, which is basically, people refer to it as the heartbeat of the earth, but it's the frequency of the earth.
Yeah.
So it's the frequency of nature. That's really important. You can also just mentally envision that. That's a big one I try to do every day.
And there's recordings that are at that same frequency that you can listen to. So if you just are having a hard time imagining what we're talking about, or if you want to actually hear something at that frequency, you can play that, and that might help you just get an idea, and then you can kind of keep that feeling and that sound in your head. Right. So when you want to bring it up,
it's actually a B. It's 2 octaves lower than the lowest B on piano.
Oh.
I learned that the other day.
And it's the same as cat purring.
Right. Or bee buzzing. Those are all that same. I think it's 7.35 frequency. Also, I have a Schumann resonance tuning fork. Mm-hmm. So when you hit it, you don't hear anything. because it's so low. But if you put it by your ears, you can actually hear the vibration.
Yes.
But I personally, I learned that at a conference a couple months ago, but I do that every night before I go to bed, pointing at my head, I put it on my head. And in the morning, because connecting to that is so important right now. Because remember, if you didn't listen to our last podcast that was taken out, try to find it, because we had a lot of really good information on what's actually going on.
It's in our podcast, so it was just the video.
It was just a video, yeah. But go back and listen to it, because everything we talked about was really important, what's going on right now. But, we mentioned about how they're trying to connect everyone to their grid that they're building, the transhumanist agenda. So maybe I shouldn't have said that. That word.
That's okay. I feel like the rhyming even is going to catch it somehow.
Maybe. Anyway, but so they're trying to connect you to that grid. So you need to consciously make sure every day you're connecting to our natural grid, which is human resonance.
Right.
Even circadian rhythms, we're every piece of nature life on this planet is connected to that.
I mean, you got to think of the big things like seasons and tides, and like there is a energy to everything, and everything is connected, and it works out in things. Spring and summer and fall and winter, like there's patterns, and things have to connect for everything to be alive and be prosperous and healthy and happy. And we are getting farther and farther away from that. So you have to consciously make sure you're getting back to it.
Right. That's a huge part of health. And so we call it the Gaia grid. Gaia means nature. That's what I call it, the Gaia grid. So every day I consciously make sure I'm connected to that. So there's a lot of different tips to do that. Also, let's see. Yep, I talked about that. Okay, so keeping your body pH balance is 7 to 7.5. That's our natural pH balance. And interestingly enough, I'm sure I've said this before, but that's also the pH balance of chlorophyll in trees. So, doesn't seem like a surprise there. But so you can test your pH. And if you're acidic, you want to make sure you get it up. But if you're doing everything at the foundational level, like we teach, naturally you will maintain that 7 to 7.5. But that's really important. So that comes down to the analogy that I'm sure we've shared before about, a swimming pool you don't take care of, all of a sudden it gets murky and yucky, or like a fish tank, all the fish die, the algae takes over. Yeah. That's an acidic environment. If you're in a natural balanced environment where your body should be 7 to 7.5, then you don't get an overgrowth of bacteria or parasites, or where viruses come out.
And that balance does not just magically happen. You have to be aware of what's going in to the environment and how it's being taken care of. Now, it's not magic. You have to do that with a pool, a fish tank, and your body.
Right. It takes work every day. But again, you can figure that out on your own, or just that's what we do. That's what we teach. So,
yes.
But that is important, because even with viruses, we talked about this before, viruses are just information that are not going to do anything if you're in balance. If you're in an acidic environment, that's when the viruses can start becoming symptomatic.
Yeah.
Salt spray is a really good one. Himalayan salt. If you think about Himalayan salt, is actually an ancient sea bed.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a sea. It is an ocean, very ancient ocean. But there are 87 minerals in the sea salt, but there are also 87 minerals in our blood. See how in nature we all are the same?
A little piece of all of us.
Yeah. So putting Himalayan salt in a spray bottle of water, filtered water, and then just spraying, again, your energy field.
Yeah.
We really do have an energy field. So every time I've been out around
the masses.
Right. Then I just spray my energy when I come in. The other thing is ions. We forgot to say that with nature. So everything in nature has negative ions. Everything that is man-made, synthetic, diseased, it all has positive ions. So that's something that nature gives us, are these negative ions. And everything has an equal and opposite reaction. Opposites attract. So anything that's a negative ion is going to attach those positive ions, and it just kind of neutralizes. So it's like a air filter.
Yes.
In a way.
That's why those things, like there are ionizing air filters and ionizing this and ionizing that. And you can look at a lot of the plants that are really good for indoor air quality or EMF protection, have that higher ion field.
Right.
The Himalayan salt lamps, same thing. They're ionizing. That's why they're good in detoxing.
Right. That's how these work. People often think that it's fake, but they have negative ions coming off of them. If this was on, I mean, I'm sure it still doesn't come off, but and then they attract the negative ions in your room, which it can be EMFs, it can be pollutants, toxins to that, and then they just kind of neutralize each other and fall off. But that's the same with nature and the ions. So, and the salt spray, that's where I was going. The salt spray has the negative ions as well. So that's really important to do. The rest of everything that I'm just going to go over real quick is these are all really good. Some of these that we use as well, but I know a lot of different doctors are having protocols right now about what you can do. But again, so I took the protocols that we believe in, and I'll share those with you. But remember, these are still more like a Band-Aid or a fix. You still, no matter what, have to work on your immune system, which is that foundational level, that first thing we talked about. So these are all great, but if you don't do the foundational work, you're still going to have a problem. Right. It might make you feel a little better. It might make you
a little more
keep from getting sick. But if you don't work on your immune system and building that.
And on the other side of it, if you already have your foundation in place and you're very well balanced, very healthy, these might not really be doing anything for you. They might just be kind of mentally making you feel better.
Right. Which is a real thing.
Yes. But we know that a lot of people, we're in a situation right now where there are a lot of stressors, a lot of health risks. So, if you need to do these types of things to keep yourself safe and healthy right now, that's understandable, but you should always be working towards that goal of being healthy and balanced with that foundation. So you don't need these kind of things.
Right. Exactly. So some of the fixes you can do, or, a lot of people, like a lot of our patients, we do have some people that have had the thing. So these will be good for you. We also have people that they haven't, but maybe they have loved ones or family members or husband or children.
Yeah.
Or just working in a work environment where they're around a lot of people that have had it. And so these might be extra, different steps that you can take. But we already said that twice. That really is the most important thing. Okay, so bentonite clay baths are really good. And, so another thing that people are really talking about is the graphene oxide that is in the shot. So that is something to be concerned about, obviously. But they keep in mind that they are also, we've talked about the chemtrails before. That's probably a word I shouldn't be saying. But what they're spraying us with, they are also spraying us with something called smart dust. And it is, has the graphene oxide in it too. So you can't get away from it. So just because you haven't had the shot doesn't mean that you're not coming in contact with this. So everyone needs to be detoxing all the time. That foundational work is detoxing. Everything about it is detoxing. You're detoxing your environment. You're detoxing, the diet is detoxing. Your body is able to detox better because your body burden is lifted. But
even the mindset, you're detoxing those negative thoughts.
Right. Yeah. Past traumas, stressors, all those things. But things like bentonite clay baths are very detoxing. I've actually heard a lot of people, and I keep meaning to do this, but I don't think about it. I need to try it as an experiment. But you can do these bentonite clay baths and then use a black light, and supposedly you can see the graphene oxide come out of you. It's almost like fibers. Yeah.
And bentonite clay is not hard to find. I was actually at Target the other day, and they had a giant container of actually a good company, organic bentonite clay.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's great to have on hand. Like I always make my own toothpaste, and one of the ingredients is bentonite clay.
Yeah.
Bentonite clay is good for face masks. I mean, you can use it for all kinds of things. So it is something good to have in your, your
Pantry.
bathroom cabinet or whatever. But yeah, definitely take bentonite clay baths. Diatomaceous earth in the bath is really good as well. Also an ingredient in the toothpaste. I take it internally every day. It's good for detoxing heavy metals, among other things, flushing that out. And then you can also add Himalayan salt to your bath as well. We used to, and what I call Epsom salts. But I recently found out that all the Epsom salts have been mined, so they're gone. So now all the Epsom salts, majority of Epsom salts are actually man-made. So I don't recommend Epsom salts anymore.
Yeah.
But all of these are really good for a detoxing bath. So EMF protection is always really great. We teach that in our program. But remember that these shots are basically essentially turning you into a smart meter. We've talked about that before. So there is a frequency coming off of people that have had it, an EMF frequency. So my theory is, and this hasn't been proven because this is all new. We don't know, but EMF protection to protect you against wireless devices, that type of thing, I would assume would also work for a person that has had it or is around people that have. So just unplugging as much as possible is huge anyway, but wearing maybe an organite pendant, having organite in your home, shungite is really good for that. And those work kind of like the ions with the Himalayan salt lamps. It neutralizes the frequency. Rosemary is a really good herb for that. So you can use rosemary oil. You can diffuse rosemary oil. You can make a rosemary tea. That would be good to be drinking every day just to help detoxify that radiation from your body. Bentonite clay actually is also really good for detoxing radiation. So if you've had to have x-rays or something like that, mammogram, right? Take a bentonite clay.
With a large electronic source or output that you've been exposed to.
Right. Yeah. I have a couple big rosemary bushes that I keep in my house in pots through the winter and then put them out in the summer. Had them for many years. So you can just get fresh rosemary. Rosemary you can cook with. You can eat it fresh. You can put it on salads. You can make tea
and make it smell lovely.
Right. You just oil on your hands. And then all the oils. You can just smell the aroma right off your hands. So definitely rosemary, have that around. That's a good one. Diffusing thieves. Thieves happens to be a Young Living oil. We diffuse it here in the center. Ever since this happened, we diffuse it every day. It's really good for cleaning the air. Just if people if somebody came in with a cold or something like that, in general, just cleaning the air.
Yes.
You can put it, behind your ears. I can't remember exactly what the blend is.
I don't remember either.
I should have checked before it came up, but you can make your own thieves blend. You can look it up. I know you can Google it and make it yourself. That's a really good one. I have down mentally and intentionally connected to the Gaia grid, but we already talked about that. Oh, and then pine needle tea. So I've heard a lot of people talking about pine needle tea, which sounds so strange, but
a little bit like crazy cat lady stuff.
Right. I had never heard of pine needle tea before all of this happened. So I did a research on it. So shikimate is in pine needle tea in very high doses. You can also find it in anise and some other things, but that's the main ingredient in Theraflu. So that should tell you that's good for if you're not feeling good.
Right. Shortening prolonged illness, getting rid of symptoms.
Yeah. And
immune systems.
They have 5 times more vitamin C than citrus.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy. I did not know that. So, and maybe I've said this before because I think it's fascinating, but a couple hundred years ago, pine trees would sustain people like pioneers and Indians and, Aborigines, things like that through the winter so that they would have vitamin C through the whole winter.
That makes sense.
Yeah. or, in the Midwest where we can't grow citrus fruits.
Mhm.
So it's very high in vitamin C, which is important. And it's also a natural electrolyte. So people know about electrolytes. They're important. It's a natural electrolyte. But anyway, pine needle tea, and it could be basically any kind of pine tree that you would use as a Christmas tree. That's the kind of pine trees that you can use the needles from. So I just keep harvesting them.
Look that up to identify if you're not sure,
Right?
Or you can get that specific tree, or you can find them where you just get needles, or you can find the tea. Really,
yeah. I personally don't have a pine tree, so every time I go out on my dog walks, there's a couple on my walks, and I just take a little bit off, take it home, and make some tea. I've been harvesting them, and then I've also been cleaning them and putting them in the freezer and freezing them for winter. Yeah, but if you have a pine tree, then that's great. But I mean, that would be a great, just remedy if somebody in your house gets sick or has a cold, and it actually tastes really good.
Yeah, I haven't tried it.
I think that's really all I had. So I took all the good protocols that other people are mentioning. Oh no, that's not.
I was gonna say that's not.
No, so this page is basically just, these are really getting down to the Band-Aid fixes. So a lot of people are saying zinc. Okay, yes, zinc is great, but zinc can be poisonous. That's what drives me crazy about this. You have to do a test to make sure that you are zinc deficient.
Right. Like you don't need extra zinc to help support your immune system. You need to make sure that your zinc levels are where they're supposed to be, and a lot of people are deficient. So it's not like more zinc is more protection.
Right.
The right amount is what you want. So if you are deficient, lots of people are, then take zinc to help get back where you should be. It's all about balance.
Right.
But some people are not, and then you can overdo it and cause different issues.
Yeah, you can definitely get zinc poisoning. So you can do the test. We've talked about that before. D3, everybody's mentioning that. Yes, that's important. You can be deficient in that. But again, half hour out in the sun every day is ample D3. Even in the winter, if you sit in the sun, I'm pointing over here, there's a window over here. Even if you sit in the sun in the window, you can get enough D3. There is the Dimming of the Sun project right now that they've really ramped up since 4th of July. So we're not getting as much of that, life force energy from the sun as before. But if you're outside, this is September 1st, we're outside plenty to get enough vitamin D, and you really don't need to worry about it. Over the winter, yes, maybe, but make sure it's a really good source. That's important too. Make sure it's real, plant-based. Vitamin C, a lot of vitamin C is good. Again, the pine needle tea, there's a lot of vitamin C in that. If you're eating a balanced diet of real whole foods, you're probably getting enough vitamin C.
Right. That's one of those things that people just keep taking it, and while it's not as big of an issue with the zinc, if you're doing too much of that, you're just wasting your time and money. If you're taking a bunch of supplements, they're just going through you because your body's not going to absorb it if it's already at the point it has what it needs.
Right. Vitamin C is water soluble, so anything your body doesn't need, you're just paying out. But again, if you do want to get it, make sure it's a really good source, because the majority of vitamins supplements right now are synthetic, or that SynBio that I talked about before. So make sure it's a good source, good plant-based source. But again, that's easy to get in your diet, really, if you're eating proper. I keep hearing people talk about NAC. That's a precursor to glutathione, which is the amino acid that your liver makes. So again, if your body is not healthy, maybe your liver is overtaxed, you may not be making it. You may actually need that NAC. But if you're doing that foundational work, you probably don't need it. But what it does, the reason people are recommending it, is it helps detoxify if you're deficient in it. Again,
it's basically the very top of that detox pathway with your liver. So if you're supplementing at the top, it's going to trickle down and make the whole pathway a little bit better.
Right. So that's something. Milk thistle, that really is a good herb to take. Milk thistle is a very good detoxer for liver detoxification. And everyone's liver is overburdened right now. It just is. It used to be people were alcoholics, but it's everyone right now because of all the environmental factors.
Your liver does a lot besides processing alcohol.
I know, that's just what we always do.
Because we know that part of it. But it processes everything, essentially. It detoxes anything that's not supposed to be there. So it needs to be healthy and functioning.
Right. And it's that overburden we talk about all the time. It is overburden. That's why it's not functioning properly. So if you're doing the foundational work, you're taking that burden off of your liver so it's able to detoxify. But milk thistle is helpful with that.
And another one that's kind of tasty. I like milk thistle tea.
Yeah, I do too.
Dandelion tea, I like that too.
Yeah, and dandelions, all parts of the dandelion are edible and detoxifying.
Just if you're going to pick them wild, make sure they're not being sprayed.
Right. I was pulling weeds yesterday. I'm like pulling weeds, and I get to my dandelions, and I was putting them on my salad bowl, keeping them.
That's in your own yards. You always can put on them if you're just going out in the public fields, or you don't do your own yard, or it's small and spray might come over it. Then
right. Let's see what else that we've not talked about here. CBD oil is actually good.
Again, sourcing. It's such a hot thing right now that that they're just manufacturing in not so great ways to get out there and make money. So
and they even have GMO right now and add chemicals. So it has to be really good sourcing. But it's good at removing that graphene oxide that we were talking about. Super blue green algae. It's good at removing heavy metals. So is parsley and cilantro. Mm-hmm. Sourcing. I mean, we could say
cilantro is super easy to grow yourself.
Right. Yes. Selenium is really good. I've heard a lot of people mention that. The thing with selenium, it's very detoxifying. We should all have it. You can get it in Brazil nuts. You can get raw Brazil nuts, but you can definitely be poisoned by too much selenium. So you don't need two nuts a day gives you enough selenium. So you just need a little bit. Yes. So even if you get in the habit of eating a Brazil nut a day, I mean, they're pretty big if you don't know what they look like, but that's enough. That's plenty of selenium. Very detoxifying. Apple pectin powder is good. That just helps with digestion, helps you absorb the toxins, which you eliminate, right? Magnesium is good. Again, magnesium, you can have too much. I think that was about it.
We are doing an excellent job of time this time.
That's amazing.
Give ourselves a little high
five. No, we usually are. Obviously, we like talking about the bad things better than the good things.
This list is good though.
Yeah. So these are all really good. We also there's a lot of different detoxifying action steps that you can take that we teach in our program. So rebounding is really good. Jumping on a mini trampoline. You only need 10 minutes a day. Get your lymphatic system moving.
Yeah. Massage can do the same thing.
Lymphatic massage. What else? Sauna. Infrared sauna is really great for that. If you have access to one, or if you want an investment, then it is a chunk of change to buy one, but it's a really good investment to have in your home and do that every day.
Anything that makes you sweat, that you're not overexerting yourself. Sweating is one of those really good natural ways to detox. So let yourself sweat. Don't cover yourself up with antiperspirant lotion all the time. Let that come out.
Yeah, because if you think about how do we detoxify, everybody knows your liver is detoxifying, your kidneys are detoxifying, but the only ways your body actually releases toxin is through the breath, which, brings us to masks. You have to be able to eliminate those toxins. That's one of your main detoxifying pathways is your breath. Perspiration. So that's what Jenni was saying. If you're using antiperspirant, you're not able to perspire. Or if you're putting lotion all over your body, that perspiration can't come out. That's a very important way of eliminating toxins. Urination, again, staying hydrated. So you're urinating all day long. That's part of how you get the toxins out. And then defecation. So you need to make sure your GI tract is working properly. Working
on really interesting actual real data coming out with how sick you get and your gut health. People with good gut health are the asymptomatic, not getting sick. People with terrible gut health are on the other end of the spectrum. So there's a huge connection.
Yeah.
And also all of these things that she just mentioned, I know they're, in certain situations, you can't be sweating all over the place. So it's not like you can use antiperspirant sometimes. But just make sure sometimes you're not. And if you are healthy and in balance, that shouldn't smell. Your breath shouldn't smell. Your sweat shouldn't smell. Poop shouldn't smell. You shouldn't smell. Because it's just a normal way to get rid of toxins.
Right. Yeah. Any kind of odor, anything that's odoriferous, is a sign that your body's overburdened and trying to get rid of something. What was I going to say? I had a quick thought.
Sorry, I should talk about the smelling.
No, it's okay. Yeah, that must have gotten me off. I don't know. Oh, I was just going to talk about leaky gut. And 100% of the people we work with come to us with leaky gut. So if you have any kind of chronic issues going on, autoimmune issues, guaranteed you have leaky gut. So you have to work on that. And that goes back to that foundational level too. So that's what we do.
In everything we teach in our foundations, whether you're working with us in person or through the program online or through a preventative health practitioner, all of that focuses on gut health, healing leaky gut, and improving your natural detox systems. We don't go into it huge at the beginning around why, but we hit it hard. Then we kind of explain those things later on. And if you want to know even more in depth, we have, beyond that training that we can get into. But it is definitely something that every single thing we recommend focuses on at least one piece of that.
Right. Yeah. In order to have a strong immune system, which is essentially what this all comes down to, you have to have a healthy gut. There's a lot. That's why it's overwhelming for people, but that's why you should come work with us. We take away that overwhelm.
Take these little tidbits and do what you can. You don't have to do all of them. Of course, the more you do, the better.
Right.
Like she said, the list that was more of the Band-Aid fixes, just make sure it's something you actually need to do. You're not going too far in the other direction. But the foundational stuff, you can never go too far with that.
Right, exactly. And the Band-Aid fixes are good for even if your kids come home with a cold or you come down with a cold. It doesn't have to be the current situation. It's just that everything seems to revolve around that right now.
Sometimes there are stressors in your life that just happen and you get run down, and then you need to kind of boost and support. And as long as you're always remembering those foundations, it'll just be a little blip. It won't be a huge snowball that lands you in the hospital.
Right, exactly. So it's a lot. There's a lot you can do. So just pick whatever works for you, incorporate in as much as you can, but always come back to those foundational pieces. Okay, I think that's it for today. So this whole podcast was about solutions.
Those actions.
Yes.
Put it in place. That gives you the power.
Exactly. And like I said, if you didn't listen to our last podcast, go back and listen to that, because that will tell you all the whys and why you really want to make sure you're doing all of this. Okay.
All right.
All right. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.